The knee has the unfortunate life circumstance of existing between the hip and the ankle. The foundation of knee pain is always an unstable hip and an unstable ankle. Welcome to the Joint Pain Podcast, where we have discussions on the science and art of joint pain and longevity. I'm your host, Matthew Lister, the founder of Align Pain Management. Welcome back to the Joint Pain Podcast. Today we are talking about how to fix knee pain, and I have Jake Gibbins, Align coach, with me here today, and we're going to unpack how to fix knee pain.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So we're actually going to flip the script a little bit today, and we are going to start by unpacking how do you destroy a knee? What can you do to absolutely destroy a knee as fast as possible? Which is a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it'll be helpful for people to understand what are the major drivers of knee destruction. And then we can sort of flip that and go, okay, how would you fix that if you found yourself in that situation?
Okay.
Sound good?
Let's dive in.
Cool. So let's cook up some knee destruction. What is the recipe? I'll list them and then we'll go back and unpack them. So number 1 is let your feet get weak. Number 2 is let your ankles get stiff. Number 3 is let your glute medius muscle get weak. Number 4 is live a sedentary lifestyle. So we'll go back and unpack each of these and how they contribute to knee destruction. Ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Why don't we kick it to you for number 1? I'll let you start. How does letting your feet get weak contribute to knee destruction?
Yeah, that's a great one. So most oftentimes people think of knee pain, it's just knee pain. But when we got to think of the feet, right? From the bottom up, most oftentimes people don't usually have foot pain. It's just more knee pain. But when you take off the shoe and you start going barefoot and you start seeing that arch collapse, that foot turns in. As soon as that arch collapses, then obviously the biomechanics dysfunction goes up to that knee, and then that becomes a knee issue. And most people overlook the foot, right? You're wearing shoes a lot, good support. But once you take that support out, dysfunction. Yeah, the foot is the foundation for the knee. And so if the foot gets dysfunctional, and what that typically looks like is the big toe diving in and the arch collapsing, the ankle collapsing, and then the knee collapsing in response to everything below it. And then you get misalignments in the knee, and then those misalignments cause that degenerative pattern in the knee, whether that's osteoarthritis or bone spurs or all those sort of changes. So when your feet are weak, it just absolutely misaligns the knee and then destroys the knee really rapidly. Yeah. Okay. Number 2, let your ankles get stiff. So I'll take this one. When your ankles get stiff, when they don't have enough dorsiflexion, when your ankle won't bend backwards enough, the foot will tend to turn out. You'll roll through the inside of the foot, and then that'll actually create a torsion in the knee where the lower leg will turn out, the femur will turn in, and again, you'll misalign the knee, and then you'll get a rapid degeneration process happening in the knee, and it's from those ankles just not being mobile enough and shoving load and compensation up into the knee. We don't realize when we're elevated with shoes all the time that Achilles gets tighter, calf gets tighter, and we lose that range of motion.
This is actually a great spot to talk about shoes real briefly. Our culture wears shoes that are too narrow for their feet and that oftentimes have a heel lift, a heel drop. And the problem with those two characteristics to modern shoes is they cause stiff ankles and weak feet. And so we see this rampant osteoarthritis and knee replacement epidemic in our society, and it just sort of seems normal at this point, but it's largely caused by modern footwear, the feet getting weak and the ankles getting stiffer because of the characteristics of the shoes that we wear. Nike started that one, back in the 60s? Something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Don't quote me on that. Cool. Let's hammer number 3.
All right. So number 3, glute medius
Muscle weakness. We think about, obviously we talked about the bottom half, right? Now let's look up the chain above that knee. That knee is just a hinge joint, so just meant to go back and forth. But when we have weakness up top and the highly mobile joint, of the femur, that glute is supposed to keep that femur out. Well, if it doesn't keep that femur out, it's weakness, it dives in, and you have the TFL muscle that starts taking over, becomes over dominant, pulling that knee in, then you run into valgus knee or knee collapse. The goal would be obviously to get that glute stronger so that femur rotates back out where it's supposed to be, better Q angle, healthier walk and gait pattern for individual.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's super crucial. It's sneaky. It sneaks up on people. Yeah. When that glute medius muscle gets weak, like you said, that TFL gets tight, and the TFL turns the knee in, but it also turns the tibia, the lower leg, out. And so it just really cranks on that knee, causes that misalignment. And then when you hinge on that misaligned joint, it just destroys it really rapidly. So that's a big problem.
Big problem.
And that shows up if you're sort of walking through the grocery store. The way that you can see that is sort of people doing like a little bit of a waddle. That side-to-side waddle is a weak glute medius muscle, or their pelvis collapsing when they walk, when they stand on their right leg and then that left hip collapses because that muscle isn't strong enough to hold it up. That's what glute medius weakness looks like in people's biomechanics day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. Every step is a single leg stance, so every time you step, it shifts and put more pressure down to that knee in areas we don't want biomechanically.
Yeah. One of my favorite sort of pithy quotes to use in workshops and education is that the knee has the unfortunate life circumstance of existing between the feet and the hips. And because that's like, knee problems don't start as knee problems. They are hip and ankle and feet problems. They just never start in the knee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Vulnerable spot right there.
It is. It is. Okay, number 4, living a sedentary lifestyle. So the problem with living a sedentary lifestyle for the knee is that the knee requires all of our joints, but the knees in particular require activity and load for nourishment. The density of the cartilage and the density of the bone and the density of the connective tissues and the muscles around it, it requires load and it requires activity. And so when we live a sedentary lifestyle, we just starve our knees and all of our joints, but we starve our knees of blood flow. We starve them of load, and they end up just being destroyed because of that fact.
Yeah, I mean, more oftentimes than not, you see an individual come in with pain that's had a sedentary lifestyle, and that's the main part where you got to try to get them out of that lifestyle in order to get this movement and get this biomechanics back and get them back to the lifestyle of walking and creating life outside of the sedentary.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's flip it. Let's turn it on its head.
Okay.
What is the recipe for fixing pain and performing at a high level? So now we're going to basically flip these variables around and talk through how do we have strong feet? How do we keep our ankles mobile? How do we keep our glute medius muscles strong? And how do we stay strong and aerobically fit? So we'll just sort of unpack each of these things one by one.
Perfect.
You want to start with the feet?
Yeah, so strong feet, obviously, if an individual's always worn shoes and they've never been used to being barefoot, it's probably not best that they go straight barefoot, right? We got to do it in time. We got to create some sort of strength in that arch to allow the body to absorb force as it walks. If we just go straight cold turkey, no shoes, no nothing, they're walking flat, that knee pain's still going to exist because the feet aren't strong enough to hold the body weight. We have that arch collapse, the knees caving in even more. So you could honestly be doing worse if you go that way, I would think. Got any opinions on that?
Yeah, totally. I think a really common complaint that we hear in clinic is that people sort of read online that barefoot shoes were good for their feet, and so they went from modern footwear to barefoot shoes all in one jump, and they ended up with plantar fasciitis. And then they took that as evidence that barefoot shoes must be bad.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was just too much too soon. What barefoot shoes do is they let feet be feet, and they let feet be the support system rather than having a shoe be the support system. And so it requires a progression from modern footwear down to minimal runners to more barefoot shoes, if that's where you're trying to get to. Ultimately, over a period of time, everyone needs to be in a zero drop or close to zero drop shoe without a heel elevation, as well as have a toe box that is wide enough for your toes to splay, right? And so everybody needs to be in that, but how much cushion you have under your foot, I think it needs to be on a person-by-person basis. How much load are you putting through your feet? Are you spending 12 hours on your feet per day, or are you just using them to walk from your car to the store? So it's you just have to personalize that a little bit. What's your favorite exercise for strengthening feet?
Obviously for this podcast, if someone's just out there trying to gain more knowledge, and most oftentimes when I start with a client, the first thing is just getting those toes to curl and splay out is hard for them. We're not used to getting the brain to connect the dots to get those to work correctly. And once we do, we find it cramps and tightness in those muscles because they're just not used to those muscles working. So I would say that's the best one to start with. And in my opinion, you can't do too many. Obviously, when you start and it starts cramping, you got to slowly progress that up to a certain point. But that's a great one. And then obviously you can progress on to banded toe presses and stronger elements once your feet are available for that.
In the beginning, people have a difficult time even moving their toes, actually getting engagement of the arch muscles of the feet and curling those toes down and splaying them out wide. And so everybody needs to start on toe curls and splays. We usually start with like 3 sets of 20. As far as strengthening feet and getting them strong once they're actually functioning, like you said, I really like banded toe presses, where you can isolate the toes and those arch muscles and really progressionally build strength. And so you can increase reps, you can increase band tension, and you can be really intentional about adding more load and more load and more load so you can really get those feet nice and strong. From there, you can obviously, do balance work, and you can do single leg stand. So you can get fancy after that, but I think the foundational elements of having strong feet is just being able to curl and splay your toes, and then being able to do those banded toe presses. I think those are the fundamentals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Keeping ankles mobile. So your ankles need to be mobile to protect the knee. The knee gets destroyed when the ankles aren't mobile enough. And so my favorite way to mobilize the ankles is probably twofold. One is just good old-fashioned downward dogs. It's a great exercise for getting your ankles to move to about 40, 45 degrees, which is plenty for most people. And then my second favorite is actually to do elevated calf raises. I really like elevated calf raises because you can get a good stretch down at the bottom, get 50, 60 degrees of ankle movement, and then you get the strengthening element of that where you're driving up and doing the calf raise component. And I always prefer loaded stretches rather than static stretches or active stretches where possible, because then you get the benefit of being mobile and strong from that one effort. So you just get a good ROI on the time spent.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with the elevated calf raises. Something that brings that heel off the ground, so you get the full stretch and full contraction of that muscle, not isolated movements. You want the full range of motion there.
Yeah, doing them off the floor does not get you there. That just is neutral. It's good for strength. It's fine for strength. It's okay for strength, but that elevated calf raise, where it's at. Okay, keeping your glute medius muscle strong. So, where is the glute medius muscle? What's your favorite exercise for it?
Yeah, glute medius muscle located on the back side of the hip, right? Muscle that we don't often think about. It just kind of goes dormant and weak if we don't use it, right? In order to get that firing, my best one is clamshells. It's more of a isolated movement. Once obviously a client, if they're watching this, start with the clamshells, just slowly getting that knee to separate, activating that glute more. Then you can go to the outer thigh raise.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I find people that go straight to the outer thigh raise tend to engage the TFL a little too much. And so doing on your own, I think, is clamshells would be the best for that strength movement. You'd be surprised how hard it is to do with just your body weight starting off. That's usually where we start, and then you can increase, obviously, band strength as you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a mixed relationship with clamshells.
Yeah, let me hear it.
They're just sort of that I use clamshells. I'm not knocking your choice because I agree with it.
Yeah.
But clamshells are that thing at PT, at physical therapy that everybody has done.
Yeah.
And it didn't help. And
so it's important to make sure that you're doing them correctly, right? You want to make sure the hips are rotated forward and that you're feeling that front side turn off and that glute on the back side. Obviously, you know that, but it's important, not to just go through the movement of letting that back rotate out and then performing that from a different muscle.
I think if people are doing it at home, I think backing up against a wall and
point.
really ensuring that your bottom hip is pressed all the way up against the wall and then executing the clamshell. So my first gripe with clamshells is that most people just do them wrong and they end up using the TFL muscle instead of the glute medius muscle, and then it actually makes the problem worse.
Yeah.
My second gripe is that it's not the best. What research has shown is that it's not the best exercise to actually fire the glute medius muscle, like an outer thigh raise or a hip hitch is.
Yeah.
But I agree with your recommendation. Most people, their glute medius is so deactivated that they can't even get into an outer thigh raise. And even like a static outer thigh raise. And so it's even that sort of fundamental exercise can even be too advanced. So I agree that a clamshell can be a really nice stepping stone to outer thigh raises. I oftentimes have my clients do both, right? So for a week, 2 weeks, we'll do a static clamshell. We'll build up through the bands, light, medium, heavy. On a static clamshell, we'll go to active, and then once they can do some active clamshells with a nice heavy band, then we'll go to outer thigh raises and progress to that outer thigh raise motion. I really like clamshell pop-up, a side plank pop-up with a clamshell.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite exercise for the glute medius. It's so far beyond what a lot of people can do.
Say, let's not start there. We gotta make sure we got shoulder support and stability before we start
there's so many
that.
things that have to go right with that, but I would say that's my favorite exercise for it, especially for athletes and for people who are coming in at a relatively high level. I think the clamshell pop-up is a really high quality exercise for glute medius strength and pelvic stability. For people who have been living a sedentary lifestyle, clamshell to an outer thigh raise to like a lateral band walk or something like that is the best progression in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right, last one, staying strong and aerobically fit. So recommendations on staying strong and aerobically fit for someone with knee pain. I would say bike. The bike has the highest likelihood of being able to give you aerobic training without aggravating the knee. And so 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week, moderate intensity. It does not have to be highly intense, low to moderate intensity. For 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week is sort of that sweet spot for just starting out maintenance level aerobic work. And that's just going to pump blood flow into that area, getting the quad muscles firing, getting the calves firing, restoring proper lymphatic drainage around the knee. So we're getting a reduced inflammation load around the knee, as well as just load and work on the knee. So that way we get denser bone, denser cartilage, higher quality cartilage, and then stronger, more stable muscles around that knee joint.
Yeah, I would agree. That's obviously, like you said, your safest bet. You just got to make sure, as you know, the seat is in a correct location for them, not too compressed or not too extended where you're pulling too hard or pushing too hard through that knee.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Where should that seat be set?
Great question. So you want it to be where it's comfortable for you to make the range of motion. Obviously, it's different for different, different bikes you're on. But you want to make sure that you're not fully extending that leg out and then really trying to pull that leg back in where it's comfortable and nice, easy rotation.
Yeah, you should have just a tiny little bit of knee bend at full extension. You don't want to be locked out. And at the farthest point in the stride, you also don't want to be jammed up with a lot of knee bend, right? And so just a tiny little bit of knee bend at the furthest extension point. And that's typically the best point for a seat position.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I agree.
All right. I think we knocked that one out fast. Anything we need to cover?
No, I would say one thing that I could add is obviously a sedentary individual. If it's someone that has knee pain, one thing I've found helpful is the weather gets warmer. Being in a pool is good for that as well.
Yeah.
So taking that pressure off, decreasing some of that pressure, just getting movement back and forth. Right, just walking. If you got a pool, you can walk in.
Yeah.
Getting some resistance against you, obviously, but a little bit of control and stability as well with the water.
Yeah, takes the pressure off, moves lymphatic inflammation out of the knee. Yeah, I think that's a great recommendation as well.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
all I have, though.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matthew.
Yeah. And if you have knee pain and want help from the experts, we walk people through a very targeted process of fixing their knee pain, first working through calm, then working through fixing all the mobility problems, the stability problems, and then getting people really, really strong. So if you have knee pain and want help from the experts, hop on our website, check us out, schedule a free consultation. Thank you for watching the Joint Pain Podcast. I'm Matthew Lister, and if you want help walking through your chronic pain journey, you can find more information at experiencealign.com.